Well, welcome again to Medical Mastery, the podcast of the Emerald Coast Medical Association. I am your amaranthine host, Don Davis, MD. I'm very happy to be here today with my guest, whom you may recognize from the Emerald Coast Medical Association, past president, Jeffery Pyne. Jeff Pyne, thank you so much for being here today on the Medical Mastery podcast.
Oh, thanks, Don. I really appreciate it. I have great admiration for the Medical Society and a great appreciation that you've been leading the ship so well the last couple of years, and I want to thank you for your efforts.
Well, that lands on me very nicely because I feel like I stood on the shoulders of giants in order to get here, and you being the immediate past president really taught me a lot about what to do here, and I don't feel like I can necessarily live in those shoes, but we're going to talk about that indeed, all right? Before we go to any of that, tell me about yourself. Tell me where you're from.
Well, first of all, though, I noticed the sophistication I'm going to learn from you. I have the standard water, but you were the sparkling water.
Yeah, so I went sparkling. I'm a pretty pretentiously fancy person, just so you know, okay? And actually, in the middle of the podcast, Chris will peel me a grape.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just so we
Maybe
have that going. Okay, don't you worry about it. Yeah,
okay, thank you.
It's nominal things. Don't worry about it. I deserve it.
You do?
Yeah.
You do. Gosh, well, I came from Northwest Pennsylvania mostly, and came from Meadville, Pennsylvania, which is a very small town.
It's indistinguishable for me from Maine. I just want you to know, okay? This is all Yankeeville as far as I'm concerned. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Very different culture. Graduated from high school near the now infamous Butler, Pennsylvania.
Indeed.
It wasn't famous until then, but now everybody knows where it is on the map.
Indeed.
Typical things, as a youngster, rode motocross, motorcycles, played guitar, took my first flying lessons, which became an avocation of mine throughout life.
Awesome.
After high school, I wasn't quite ready for academia, so I tried different vocations. I tried first a bartender and a waiter at a very fancy restaurant. It was very eloquent, and of course, being in a small town, I always had long hair, and which is incompatible with being a fancy waiter, so I got a wig and tucked it up under the wig. Later on, they came up with this hairdo called the mullet. I was just a pre-mullet, so I had to business at the front.
Born too early for that, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So pre-mullet, you had to tuck it into a wig. But it was fun. I learned a lot, wines and tableside service. I know this one night I was serving a 12-top, very distinguished group, and Grandpa was over here, and I'd served the meal, and I was preparing the dessert. And it was Cherry's Jubilee.
Yes.
And, it has all the mixings at the table, and I'm looking around at the grandpa, and I noticed that there's a very beautiful granddaughter paying very close attention to my technique, or at least that's what I thought it might be. And I'm putting the brandy on, I'm flambeing, and of course, being distracted, I of course caught the tablecloth on fire, and it goes up in smoke.
Now, was that part of the show? I don't know. Was that extra?
I got a great tip, but I realized that vocation may need to be modified, so I looked for other things to do.
Yeah.
I was a milkman for a while before going back to school. I literally got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and got my Marlboro truck, and I loaded it up with trucks and assorted dairy products and carted 6 gallons and threw them in the little carts in front of people's houses. They used to have milk boxes. Now they're replaced by Yetis. I don't think anyone will know. And that was really thrilling.
There's an old story about milkmen that I'm just going to leave for a different time here.
You don't have to leave it. My favorite social currency was quarts of chocolate milk.
Okay.
And there was a beautiful young daughter of a woman on my route, and she was laying out in the sun one day, and I gave her a quart of chocolate milk, and we dated for 2 years. So I'm not so sure that story.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good to know.
Yeah.
I'll write that down.
After that, I tried. I was a bottle maker. I had an apprentice bottle making job.
Really?
And I worked in the hot end making Heinz ketchup bottles and Heinz mustard bottles, and that was thrilling. It paid a lot, and I had rented my own house. I had my own grand piano and a GTO judge, and I thought I was on top of the world. It was awesome. But eventually, I had to come to the grips that I had to reintroduce myself into academia. I was having too much fun, but not going far enough to prepare for the future.
Yeah.
So I talked with my parents. I was out of the house for several years, but we arranged and I applied to Slippery Rock University.
Okay.
Great little school out in the middle of the country.
Okay.
Loved academia. I was reintroduced to learning on my terms, things I wanted to learn, unlike high school. And I tried everything. I tried physical education, I tried business, I tried philosophy, finally went into the sciences, and I said, this might have something for me. So I worked a couple of years there, and then I thought, I really need to move into a little different university setting, something that will carry me a little further. And ironically, I was full circle. I was back at Allegheny College.
Okay, yes, you made it. I was going to say you made it back to Pennsylvania. Prodigal son, yes.
And that school really kind of changed my life in a really positive way, because it was a very serious school. Mm-hmm. What they would do is the class sizes were 10 people, 12 people. Yes. So there's no sleeping in class. They catch you every time. And it was interactive, so you had to answer the questions, and you really learned well because you were part of it the whole time.
Right. And then more seminar than lecture.
It was, yeah. They had an honor system where you had to sign every test, and it said if you promise you don't cheat, or they'll kick you out forever, never to let you back in. So they took the code seriously. Mm-hmm. But the testing system was really unique. They didn't have any multiple choice tests. You would get 4 or 5 questions written on a board. You'd get 5 or 6 composition books, and you'd have 3 hours to organize your thoughts and write everything you know into a composition book, and then turn it in. And then they would read it and write you a composition book back about what you did right or what you did wrong. And it was very positive in learning. So I really got a lot from that school. But I think the best lesson I got from it wasn't really from the school. A friend of mine, we were walking up the hill one day, and a pickup truck came over and pulled and parked. And a man got out and walked up to us and shook our hands and was talking to us. And he was a very affable man, very knowledgeable. And they talked a little about medicine, a little about other things, shook our hands, and off he went. And I was like asking my friend, who is that? And he goes, well, that's my doctor. And it registered with me. I said, I could do that. I can really resonate with this person and what they're doing. And this could be something that I could really, pursue as a life career. So I knew healthcare something, doctor something, but I didn't know what, it could be Doctor Who for all I knew at that point in time.
Okay.
And so I was finishing my courses.
The time travel is hard. That's the hardest part. Okay.
You need the box.
And it's got to be technology.
And they don't have phone booths anymore, so you have to retrofit them.
It's just going to be difficult.
It is difficult. We'll have to really work on that one. I got into my 4th year, and my counselor was like, okay, now you told me you wanted healthcare, doctor or something. What's it going to be? And I was like, well, I don't know. And he goes, oh, you're going to make me break out the aptitude test. And I was like, oh, no, not the dreaded aptitude test. I've been making fun of him.
Well, but this thing that's going to tell you your destiny just from filling out some answers, yeah?
So 250 questions later, the seemingly unrelated question.
Jeez,
just a brief test. Gave it to them. They quantified it. And I said, well, what does it say I need to do? He said, congratulations, you're an optometrist. And I said, great. What's an optometrist?
Now I just need to find out what that is. Yeah.
I did not know.
I'm not certain I still know what it is, to be honest, but we'll get to that.
Well, I was glad I was going to be something.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what it would be. So he said, okay, I'm going to send you downtown. And he sent me down to apprentice with Dr. Gary Poole, who was an amazing man. He was affable and smart, and his patients loved him. He loved them. And he only worked 4 to 6 hours a day, and then he drove his new car home up to his house on the lake, went fishing for 2 hours before dinner every night. And I said, darn, I'm an optometrist.
Yes, exactly. This guy's on to something.
This is a good job.
Yeah.
And so I applied and got into the Illinois College of Optometry.
Yeah.
And I was afraid to go to the big city. I mean, I called my uncle and I said, oh my gosh, this is a big city. Should I go? And he's like, oh my gosh, go. You have to go. So I packed all my stuff up. I had a little Alfa Romeo at the time, a little old one I fixed up the summer before, threw my one suitcase behind me, and off I drove into Chicago. Got there kind of late because I was going to the dorm. I was going to live in a dorm for a year. And I noticed, the people in Chicago were so friendly. Mm-hmm. I would be driving by, girls would be waving to you, someone would wave you over and stuff. And I was like, this is a really nice town. And I got back to the dorm and I called my brother Mag and I said, Mag, this isn't going to be bad. I said, these people are really friendly. And I told him about the girls and everything. He goes, dude, those are hookers. I said, no, maybe they were.
Man, now in hindsight.
But but there were good things. There was Rush Street and Maxwell
but there's some
Street
bad things about Chicago too.
There was a few. There was a few, but I learned a lot of things there too. I learned sailing there on the Great Lakes.
Yeah, beautiful.
I was a commodore of a wooden boat club. Got into wooden boats for a number of years. It was it was really cool. And optometry school was amazing because it was math and physics and, just everything you wanted to learn. And it just felt, fairly natural for me.
That's what I've found in general with a pursuit in science and then kind of utilizing this. I don't say that we're scientists, I say we're practitioners of science, is that if you can get a few basic facts on the front end, you can deduce the rest. And that's what I love is the deductive reasoning that comes out of that, because I can figure myself out of a lot of different situations that I get exposed to because I know the basic facts and I can say, oh, this thing does this. I know how to go from here. And so that sounds like you were kind of, your brain seems to always be fidgeting or hobbying or doing something, and you can perhaps work well with your hands too.
I'm very good with my hands. Yeah, I can weld, I can build. In optometry school, I thought I was going to be done there. And then in the third year, my disease professor was Dr. Richard Maltak, an amazing man again, big beard, kind of mountainy, steely blue eyes, really great order. And everything he said, you'd memorize all the disease and pathology. I was like, whew, maybe I'm not an optometrist. So he invited me over to his hospital where he worked. He was an optometry doctor and a medical doctor.
Okay.
And he took me into surgery and showed me the other side of what ophthalmology could even be like. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm an ophthalmologist. So I didn't know, but I had to still finish optometry school because I'd never taken an MCAT. I'd never applied to medical school before.
But these are huge philosophical steps to go from bottle making to optometry to ophthalmology. Now we're talking, that's an order of magnitude up.
Story of my life. If I'm exposed to something I think I can do, I just always get it, like you said.
Yeah.
So I went over to medical school then, and medical school really clicked for me because, I'd had a good background in optometry school, so I understood all the head and neck. And it really, everything they taught you connected to something else, and then it connected to something else. Yes. And it was a ladder that brought you this great, well-rounded education. I remember coming out of first year of medical school, and you feel, you even know now when you eat asparagus, why you have that unique urine odor, because you've learned it in biochemistry. You learn all these
things. Well, and more than that, you realize cause and effect. There's ways that our processes work. There's ways that our biochemical processes work. There's ways that our physiology and everything, it works in a certain way, and you understand there is an answer. There is a way that this can be known. And so you just you change your rubric, how you start to think about things.
That's so true. Yeah. And you actually even think about what's not known, because, they teach you what they think is everything, but they also teach you that it's not everything.
That's right.
And it really prepared a lot of it. By the time you get into your clinical sciences, it's such a thrill because you make your best efforts and your best decisions, but every patient that you treat, there's an attending who is behind you who signs off and guides you the way. So you are very gifted to be in a position where someone of great knowledge is steering you every millimeter of the way, forming you to become what they call a physician. Right. And by the time you're done, you've really have changed and molded your perspective in life. And it's a real honor to be allowed to learn the information that lets you get to that point.
Yeah, I say it a little bit more callously. It was great to be able to make mistakes at that level. Yeah. Because, there's nothing that's going to formulate your learning more than making a mistake and then having to learn from it. The problem was never making the mistake. That's fine. It's not learning from the mistake. That was the cardinal sin.
It is. And, and it's a lot like Allegheny was. We just sit around your big round table and you'd make your presentations and they'd either smile, laugh, or say good.
Yes.
And then you go back again and you'd redo it and you'd redo your charts. And they allowed us a lot of freedom because my medical school was in the inner city of Chicago. And so the medical students carried a very heavy load in patient care. And so they would teach us central lines as a third year medical student.
And deep pathology, untreated pathology that you were going to get.
You would see syphilis.
Oh, tertiary,
just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And then when medical school was coming to an end, I really felt prepared to step into the next step. But the funny thing is, you remember very well, you go from 2-week vacation, you graduate medical school, you come back, your coat's 3 inches longer, and the game then changes. And this is where we really, it changed me in many ways, because you see the first person die in your arms. You deliver your first baby by yourself. You are in the unit at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're the only one that can make orders or change life and death situations. Sure, you can try to get an intern or a resident out of the call room, or you can try to call an attending. Good luck in the middle of the city with that one.
That's right.
So it all falls on you, and you find out that you're so glad you paid attention in medical school because it's all on the line now. What they considered basic competence now is a very high level of do your job.
Yeah.
It's
proficiency. Yes.
It's like hardening the steel of a knife. You may have learned it, you may have done it, but now you're molded. Now this is who you are, and you're one of the few people in this situation that is in charge of whether that person lives and dies. And it was amazing. I accepted the responsibility well because I just liked the job. Mm-hmm. But looking back on it, it's like they asked a lot of us.
Oh, yes. It's almost like I'm glad I didn't know what I was really getting into. Yeah. I'm glad I was headfirst into it before I had any time to really think about why I'm out here treading water in the middle of this ocean here. Because, you can, there's several steps to get to there. And it's not just intelligence. It's not just perspicacity with understanding science or mechanisms. You also have to have the personality to do it. And you also have to have this resilience where you can take somebody dying in your arms, you can commiserate with them and their families, and then you can be ready to do it again.
Yeah.
And that is a hard place to be. That's where you see that a lot of different people is because, that can be overwhelming to have somebody die in your arms. You got to be ready to do it again and help the next one.
Sometimes I was shocked in a good way and sometimes not. I remember I was in worked the emergency room. And there's a grandma and their young 13-year-old with them. And they came in, the 13-year-old wasn't feeling well, and I worked her up, and it turned out she was pregnant, the 13-year-old. And, I'm an intern, and the attendant goes, it's up to you. Go tell the grandma what's going on. You're like, first, why me? But then because there's no one else, it's you that are going to do all this.
Yeah, and then it's, why not me?
Yeah, it grows into that.
Yeah.
So I sat down with the 13-year-old and the grandma, and I said, well, she's pregnant. And the grandma, oh, no, don't tell me that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, she is. She says, it's the second time. So,
who knows what's going to be the rash of it that's going around. She must be predisposed.
But then there's the other side of that where, you have to give your DNRs to families.
Yes.
And you have to tell them this is what we will do or what we won't do. And then the hardest part of that is actually living with the DNR choice. I remember I was running a code one night and I didn't know the status of it. I immediately jumped in. I'm going to intubate, and they're always, foreign nurses, Korean or Chinese in the inner city. And she'll pull the intubation tube out, and I'm like, stop, I need to do this. And she's throwing a chart in my face and crying DNR, and I'm just like, that was the hardest because I can save this guy. It's a respiratory failure that I can fix.
Yeah, exactly.
I can put him on a trach, and I can do whatever I need to do, but he doesn't have to die today. But he had to die today because she puts a chart in, and you have to either accept their wishes, and then you have to ask yourself, did they get that DNR appropriately? Did they explain what this meant when he's dying right now?
That's right.
And things like that do stay with you. But the intern years finally, it came to an end, and it was wonderful. And I got to choose a surgical residency. Yes. So I went back and chose ophthalmology, 3-year surgical ophthalmology. Yes. And it was great. That program, there's 5 of us in the program. 2 of them were rotating out. There's 3 of us for 3 years, and we got all the surgery. And so I was operating in my first year. And my third year, I had over 375 major cases. And I really was comfortable coming out of the inner city. Right. And we got to rotate with some of the best. We were with the Northwestern, University of Chicago, because they would just send us out because they had subspecialty programs. So by the time I was done with my surgical residency, I really felt like this is it. I'm ready to tackle the world. Until I rotated my 4th year with Dr. Kurt Pacco, and he was an amazing surgeon, just like all the other ones I had met. And he was a retina vitreous surgeon, Rush University, chairman of ophthalmology, Rush University. And so he said, well, come over in my OR and hang out with me a little bit. So I went over to Rush and got in there. And he was a 50s aficionado.
Okay.
And so he got his own operating room at Rush University, go figure that. And he had it all decked out in the 50s. Black and white tiles on the floor, pictures and everything, indirect lighting.
Kids cramming into Volkswagen Beetles in the pictures.
He had Bose 901 speakers up on there, playing music in the background, twanging. He was dating. He had a beautiful surgical nurse / girlfriend / future wife. So they did it together, which was wonderful. And he had a mastery of intricate surgery that he just kind of looked up to me. He had his phone hooked up so he could talk on the phone while I operated. And he just kind of looked up and he said, "You can never go back to ophthalmology now, can you?" And he was being just kind of a smart aleck, but I'm just thinking to myself, I can never go back. I'm not an optometrist. I'm not an ophthalmologist. I'm a retinal surgeon.
Yes.
So I had to find a program and landed down in Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete, Dr. Sam Niku and Dr. Skip Ayer, who actually was the equivalent of finishing school. They had a very successful practice. It was very high end. I'd wear my suit and tie. And they showed me everything in the practice. It was not just learning the intricacies of surgery or retina or vitreous or detachments. They showed me patient management. They showed me staff management. They showed me how to manage hospitals.
How to be a professional.
They could, he could see somebody and stand up and shake their hand and give them 12 minutes and they thought they had 45 minutes. And the techniques they used were so
magic.
It was magic. They did things that were not even done commonly that they did first. And I look back 20 years and I was ahead because of the things that they did. They would teach me scleral dissections where I'd actually, make lamellar incisions within the sclera, which is, just a millimeter or so thick. And we'd place buckles under them and we'd do vitrectomies with a single port instead of a 3-port. And membrane peels were just so delicate. And, I really felt like when I left, I just finished finishing school. All the stuff that I learned, all that I thought that I could do, all the things I thought you could throw at me, now I can wear a suit and tie and say, I know how to do it and make you feel better while we're doing it because I'm not, you're not nervous about anything anymore.
You have your hands, and this is one of the things that I found about the flow state that I really like a lot is that when you're operating and things are going, and you have a good surge tech that's with you, that can kind of predict your movements, it's more like a symphony. It's more like ballet. It's so smooth. Your hands are going, you're almost not thinking about it.
That's true.
It's just your body is moving in the right way. Now, occasionally there'll be a hiccup, something starts to bleed, and you say, whoa, and that snaps you out of it and you've got to rethink. But if things are going normally, it's just smooth motion.
And no matter what you think, no matter how good you think you are, because you're young and your reflexes are good, you're still not at your best for 5 more years.
It's not a chance you can get that.
It is that.
It takes so long in order to get that. Yeah, that's right.
So leaving my fellowship, I was ready to join the workforce. So I thought, where were people nice to me? And I remembered Chicago, driving in that first night. No.
I went there for a couple nights and then
No. So I moved back to Chicago. I had a lot of friends there. I'd been through a graduate program there. I did sailing and friends that were there for that. And I joined a practice, a really good surgeon there, and I was there for about 6 years. And we worked 6-hour days, 12 hours at a time. We were so swamped. We couldn't take care of the people, and they kept growing and growing and growing. And after about the 6th year, I started getting a little burned out, a little fatigued, and I thought I needed to do a little sabbatical. I didn't know what that would be yet. So I bought a 66-foot motor yacht down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And
must have been $3,000, $4,000 for something like that. Okay.
Something like that, maybe $3,500.
Who knows?
Yeah. I refurbished it. I moved onto the boat, and for the next 2.5 years, I just explored the east and west coast of Florida, the Caribbean, some of the islands, came back, and I was a captain of my own boat, and I managed it all. I washed it, cleaned it, fixed the air conditioners, ran it, plotted it, and it was a really amazing experience. I got to be a sailor. The irony of it, though, is as much fun as I was having, my best friends were all 70 years old because they were doing the same thing, but they had to retire first.
Yes.
Yeah. And after about 2.5 years, going on the 3rd year, I realized that as much fun as I was truly having, I needed to go back into my vocation because they could sustain themselves on investments, but at 40 years old, you don't have enough investments to make that last.
That's right.
So I looked at different places. I was offered a job in New York.
Can I stop you for 1 second and say that, did you feel that society had invested a lot in you? and you had a pretty unique set of talents that you were able to bring. Did you
did.
feel that pressure at all, that was something that you needed to give back at such a young age?
I always knew that I would go back to it.
Yeah.
But I also had this thing that I was so indoctrinated with boating and sailing. We used to sail across the Great Lakes, in the middle of the night and racing. And I wanted to fulfill another part of me because, you had talked earlier about different chapters. You spend so much of your life preparing to do something. And then you get to that age where you're still young, you're in your 40 or so, and you want to mix it a little bit. You don't want to just give the next 40 years of your life and wake up and say, all I was a physician.
That's right.
So I did that, and I liked that. And it was very rewarding. And then when I came back, I looked at a bunch of places, but I was thrilled to find Panama City and Panama City Beach. I found 5 guys that had a large surgery center and had a large practice. And I had a skill that none of them had. And they brought me in, and they were fun. I mean, we were young. They would have, some parties in the evening, and Dr. Ettinger would wrestle us all over the floor. We'd be, sumo wrestling. And so it was physical and great. And I mean,
as ophthalmologists do. Yeah. We all know how they act. So.
Yeah, it was great. And, I was able to always have a boat here and always go sailing. And what I found myself when I got back here is I was able to take a deep breath one day and say, what really happened is I have circled back one more time, and I'm that guy in Allegheny, except I'm the one that gets out of the pickup truck, and I'm the one that can be a doctor in a town with a college in Alwa Beach and still be part of the people, but be that doctor that the people need. And it was really very rewarding to be able to realize that I finally made it home. Yeah. And this has been my home, and I feel that. And with all the patients you see, I just would pray every day, thank you, let me be God's doctor. Let me see what I need to see. If I don't see something, let me know who to ask. Let me take care of them, be one of them, and just appreciate all the gifts that were given to me. And living in the moment, planning for the past. I have never been happier than living in Panama City, serving the patients in Panama City, having great partners. And it's been a wonderful trip to get to this city and living here.
In talking with you both here, offline, at meetings and various other things, you have this very quiet confidence about you, but at the same time that comes with humility. And I think there is really no better combination when it comes to taking care of patients.
Well, you're kind to say that. I don't know.
No. I mean, that certainly is the essence of things, is to be like, look, I'm going to be very comfortable about the things that I know. And if I don't know something, okay. And I will get you to somebody that does, or I will take care of that, or I will learn it myself, or something along those lines. And that is just a great way to be, because it really bespeaks of a characteristic of you're comfortable in your own skin, and you are comfortable knowing the things that you know, and you're going to be honest about yourself. Yeah. And not all of us are. There's plenty of times where I bloviate about all kinds of things. You've heard me do that quite a bit. But it's to cover shortcomings, and to hear how you handle these things, or to say, "Wow, I didn't know that," or "No, that's a really great." It's wonderful to see somebody like yourself, and I think it again speaks to your leadership and your other qualities that you have. It's really great.
Kind. So. The growth curve in being a physician just never stops. Like we had mentioned a minute ago, you may have gotten out of your fellowship, but as you went on 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and you've done those caths, and you've seen the shortcuts and the mistakes, because people die in cath. I mean, you can't take it lightly. You're working on something that may be routine to you, but it's not to them.
That's right.
And I used to remind myself, I never wanted to forget what the patient experience was, because they actually drive the entire day. So I'd sit in my waiting room sometimes and just look around, because I wanted to see, what are they feeling when they sit down and no one waits on them and says, "Are you here for so-and-so, and what can I do?" It meant so much more when someone says, "Can I get you a cup of coffee?" Or when a tech comes back and says, "I'm going to be about 15 minutes while you dilate. I'm not going to forget about you. I'm going to come back and lead you around." And other than the frustrating thing where they're not paid attention to, and by the time they get back to the doctor, they're like, "I've been here for an hour and a half." And you're thinking to yourself, well, everybody has been here an hour and a half.
Of course.
But the experience wasn't what they needed to do. So as a physician, you need to be a team leader. And actually, because your people, it's not that they don't care, they just don't think about it. They've got children at home, they're cooking, they're having fun and frivolity. But you need to teach them along the way that the most important person is that patient and their experience, good or bad, fearful or not. And the other thing as a physician that has been so wonderful for me is that we're not just doctors of cardiology or doctors of retinal surgery. You know, I think half practice or whatever percentage of my practice was doing grief counseling and just management of all the other life things that happen that they need someone of authority just to say, it's okay, think about this or consider this, or can I have you see my friend who's a psychologist and doing this? And it's part of being a holistic surgeon. You're not just a surgeon or you're not a doctor. A doctor is really somebody who needs to take care of every aspect of everybody that comes in to the best of your ability, not looking at your watch.
Yes.
And manage it.
Oh man, it's great. Yeah.
And so that was really rewarding. And only after doing it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years do you really have a full scope of skills that you can be that doctor.
Yes.
And I think a lot of us get there.
Yeah.
And most of us, I think, get there.
I agree. Yeah. I've said before, I spent the first 10 years of my career trying to prove that I could do cardiology.
Right.
And then at some point, the cardiology became the easier part of my life. And then you realize there's, one of the best compliments that I can ever give. I mentioned it to Chris Johnson, former podcast guest, that the best compliment I can give is you're a good doctor. And because that means to me that you're doing the right thing for the right patient at the right time. And you're not doing the opposite of that in any way. Yeah. And that's hard to, you can be an excellent technician. You can be an excellent surgeon. You can be an excellent retinal specialist. Doesn't mean you're doing the right thing for the right patient. And always, 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 I can't scream this enough to medical students that come to me. If you have a patient that comes in and says, I lost my wife a few months ago.
Or
that's
yesterday.
A stop. That's a sit still. That's a, tell me how long you were married. Let's talk about that for a second. My watch goes out the window. And I've also found that is really a meaningful time for me, is that time with patients. It's a very mindful time for me where I'm very present. I'm not worried about all the other stuff. I'm here now. And it's served me in the sense that that resonates with patients very well, but it serves me too. It's selfish because I get to have a total focus on here on the moment. That's great for us.
It really does shape you. And when you're here long enough, you take care of them when they're 15 and then they have babies. And I mean, you see generations of people and families. And I think the greatest indicator of whether you're doing well or not is when almost every patient they leave, they look you in the eye and they say thank you, and they shake your hand. It's not you charge too much. It's not you didn't fix me. It's none of that. Even when you can't get the surgical result or the medical result that you want, they know your soul, and they're like, I know you did everything that you could do, and I'm not mad about it. I'm not happy that I don't see, but I understand that the situation led up to it had this outcome, and I know you did the best you could. And the confidence that they give you is really rewarding. I mean, I've never had a lawsuit. I've never had anyone question anything that we do. But I mean, there's a reason behind that. Exactly. It's a testament to them, to the people and who they are. And especially in this town, because, even the doctors in this town, when I was in Fort Lauderdale, they were so competitive. I mean, I had a patient come in as an emergency. She sat down in front of me and her eye was a mess. I tried calling the retinal surgeon who she had seen just a month before, saying, can you give me a little information about her so I know what the best way to go? He said, well, if she's at your office, I don't want anything to do with her, hung up the phone, left me just in the lurch. I'm like, that is not a physician. No,
it's not.
But that was Fort Lauderdale. That was Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, of course.
When I came up here, the doctors in this town who do the same things that I do were also friends. And when they were out of town, they called me. I'd cover all their patients. If they go out of town, they cover all my patients. We give them back and forth. We share what we're best at. And
competing groups, we'll call each other, hey man, I've got your patient over here. I'm not going to touch anything on them. I'll get them right there over to you, but I'm just going to stabilize for right now, just letting you know. That is, that's the way it should be.
And that's Panama City. I mean, we're small enough and big enough. We have some very talented physicians.
We do.
I mean, the credentials of some of these people are amazing.
Yes.
And I'm really excited about the young physicians coming into town because, when we were in the medical society, you think about it, the OGs that we had. But my greatest satisfaction is that we have nurtured a young group and a group beyond that. And when you talk to them, like a couple of young surgeons in town and stuff, they're doing well. I mean, they really are surgically doing complicated cases with good results. and they're happy and their mindset is in the right place,
Yes.
their heart and soul's in the right place. And it's just, we're doing okay.
They're excited about being doctors. They're excited about taking care of people. And that's ultimately, they're going to be the ones that are taking care of us.
You know, and being a physician, it is sport with chapters. I mean, you could be one of those doctors that practice until you're 90 years old and don't have the same level of skill. We do, a couple. But as a physician, you know, you're also a person, and there are chapters in your life that are worth developing beyond being a physician, which is a whole other discussion for us maybe someday. And they too are important in the development of life, because we're still all creatures of God. We still all have our needs and wants and goals.
Sure.
You know, I was very fortunate to meet, you know, the love of my life, and I have a wonderful wife, as do you.
Yes.
And getting to share a lot of these experiences are just, I wouldn't ever want to miss them. And some are medicine related and some are completely unrelated that you can only do if you're willing to, you know, become a broader person than just what you do for a living.
That's right. You know, I've said that there's nothing better than being thrilled to get to work and being thrilled to get home. Like those things, like, oh, it's so great to go on vacation. It's so great to come back home. Those are really the things. So, you know, I'm never bored.
No.
I'm never bored. And
in the beginning, it's always thrilled to go to work and hope you can sleep at night because you can't forget about the patient you didn't know what to do with. And eventually it becomes, everything is more routine, everything is just balanced. And then it's just, what a thrill and what a gift to be a physician.
You know, I had an experience where I had a patient that was a guy that I really, really liked a lot. We would always BS for a lot of different things, and he was doing finance stuff, and so we could, you know, kind of just sit there and talk for a long period of time. And he was out washing his boat and had an MI and died, and that devastated me, because it was definitely this questioning that I had of myself of, what did I miss? Something about my model wasn't right. I wasn't prepared for this. This wasn't the thing that I'd hoped. And of course, heart disease happens. It's going to happen to 1 in 4 of us. That's just the nature of the beast. But that one really hit me hard. And I was devastated about it, and I consternated about it, and just thought so much, and talked to my wife about it. And it hit me hard. And about 6 months later, his very young daughter came to see me as a patient. And I thought, this just hit me in a major way that, you know, in a sense, it seems like I missed something here, and yet you still trust me. And she said, my dad loved you, and he thought the world of you and all this stuff. And I just, I mean, that'll hit you hard. So, but I mean, it's a testament to resonating with patients. These are humans. They're scared. Like, I don't know the first thing about vitreoretinal surgery, and I would be scared to death if I had a retinal detachment or, for God's sake, needed something like that. And I would go to you, and then you saying, I've seen this a few times. This is my neck of the woods. I understand this thing, and let me tell you what I'm going to do. And I'll tell patients all the time, look, it's not even about if you understand everything that I'm talking about. It's if you trust me.
Right.
If you do that, we're in a great place. And if you don't, let's find somebody you will trust, because that's going to be more important than anything. So
yeah, because there are physicians that don't deserve that trust.
That's right.
There are very, very few. But occasionally you'll see some that come in and they may not have the same understanding or appreciation of what their job in this life is, and they're just trying to get in and get out. And you know, I mean, it's hard to be a surgeon. A lot of surgeons are callous because they just have so many mistakes. And the only way to get better is to put them behind you and keep going. Mockimer was one of the first retinal surgeons, and he blinded the first 15 people he operated on. And so
thank God he kept going, right?
Well, I mean, retrospectively, yes. But, you know, if it were me, I would have stopped on the second. I said, this isn't working. I can't do it anymore.
Right.
And that's the mindset of a lot of these people, So there are different people who are physicians, but the ones I respect the most are the ones that understand the mind, the body, the soul, and they're all connected, and that you need to be aware of all of it at the same time. You know, and you got to be aware of where they may have come from, where they may not have come from, why they're asking you these questions, how they got there. You know, women will come in with bruises and beatings, and you know that they've been through abuse, and you have to know how to approach this, and how you know how to guide them in the right places. And
how are things going?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and again,
full stop.
Again, full stop, and take the watch off. It's okay. You know, I mean, like this is, what else are we there to do?
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing that we get to help people. It's also a really wonderful that we have people that come to us in a very vulnerable state.
Every time.
They're very, very, very rarely acrimonious.
Yeah.
They want help. They are in danger. And you get to provide that help. Could you think of a better relationship that you could have and then ultimately get remunerated for it?
I'm lucky in that my field, although the retinal side is the one that has the most pathological associations with it. But in the general field, like in the cataract field, we take people in their 60s who can no longer read, who can no longer see, and with a 5-minute procedure or 8-minute procedure, they're not wearing glasses anymore, and for the rest of their life they're seeing 20/15 vision. So we create these very happy people, and those rewards are incredible because not all medicine is bad, not all people are sick, not all people are going to die. But you can physically make a positive change in their lives that affects everything they do for the rest of their life. And that's very rewarding to do that.
Oh, man. So I see it as my goal as a physician is I am trying to get you to get more meaning into your life.
Right.
That's what I want, by hook or by crook. Now, if you don't feel very well, certainly if you're sick and can't breathe at all, you're not going to get a whole lot of meaning in your life because you're just trying to breathe. But if I can get you feel better and then get you to be empowered to do the things that make your life better, getting somebody to see more and they can interact with their kids and go driving and go do the other stuff. Could you think of anything better than to give them more meaning? That's amazing. That's amazing.
There's a lot of jobs that I have looked at. I thought about learning naval architecture, and
of course, you do. Who hasn't? Yeah, I mean,
I was a pilot for 20 years or so. And, all those things that I may have done that I really have loved. There's nothing like this. There's just not. It's just, and just how lucky again. I'm so grateful for every day to have had the opportunity because not everyone was lucky enough to get into a college or medical school or a good internship or a good residency or a good fellowship or a good practice or good partners or a good town.
There were tons of washouts along the way. How did the balls fall right on the Plinko machine for you to land here?
Well, I think in retrospect, I think it's one of the greatest lessons. It's not always the smartest people who make it. It's the people who are willing to work the hardest to get what they desire.
Yes.
And so I've had a lot of people in my programs that I've been in that you just look at them and it's like, how do you do that? How did you memorize that so quick?
Brilliant.
They would look at anatomy, one page, they close it, and they were good for the test. But it's the ones that actually are willing to work hard enough to make sure they know it, that compete with them and exceed them, along the way. And that's probably the greatest lesson for someone young coming up.
Yeah, that's great.
You just got to work hard.
You get knocked down, you get back up. How do you get back up? How do you respond to that kind of thing? Yeah. Now, interesting that, so you're a pilot. I will say my dad is a lifelong pilot.
Yes, he was.
He's got 15,000 plus hours, et cetera. My little brother is now multi-engine rated, and he's going to go through the whole thing. So we're probably, they're both pretty accomplished. And so I've spoken with my dad about this, and I always see the verisimilitude with this and practicing in a procedural field. I was asking him about flying in and out of bad weather, and he said, I can get in and out of bad weather if I need to. It's so much better never to fly into it in the first place.
Oh, he's so right.
And that is the thing that I was like, oh, that's exact. And so I can't tell you how many times before a procedure where it's been like, hold up for a second.
Yeah.
Let's stop here. Why are we doing this again? Because maybe we're wading into some thunderstorm that we don't need to. Yeah, I can get out, but maybe there's no reason for us to get into that in the first place.
Well, in your field, and a lot of the fields where people are traditionally pathologically injured when they get there.
Yes.
Sometimes the greatest wisdom is knowing when not to operate.
That's right.
There's a career of knowing what you can do, and there's a career of knowing how you're not going to help them by doing what they think they need. And then it's quality of life, and then you have to convince them of quality of life and nurture them. And we're all going to get to the stage where we recognize we have a finite amount of days left. In fact, it's already been counted. But we have to realize that where we are, when we can accept them, how gratefully and graciously that we can accept our stage in life and our pathologies that come. Because a lot of people, one of my main techs who, I love dearly, she was 50 years old. I told you about this before. And she ended up with colon cancer within the year she's dead. And I'm like, 50 years old, that's too young. And then, then every day you come back and a 16-year-old falls off a motorcycle and dies. And so, life is not guaranteed. When, they say that forever and ever, but it's so true. And that's why you really do have to plan for the future, but you really have to live in the moment. And you have to appreciate the gift of being in that moment.
Don't wish any days away.
No.
Enjoy the time.
Enjoy every moment, because there'll be time when those days will no longer be available.
Yeah, where you wish for those. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, have good relationships. Trying to have the best family that you can have.
I mean, yeah, and that's we kind of shorten that to hug your babies.
Yeah,
whenever you get a chance, just because
or
you're not guaranteed anything. Hug your wife. I mean, I prefer that if I could. So now let's talk just a little bit about your practice for a little bit, because you would change. We obviously iterate through time, and practices evolve. I mean, we had a major hurricane here. There's a lot of different things that had changed. Can you talk about your practice experience?
We as a practice were very single-minded, like-minded, similar in age.
By the way, that's great to find 5 partners that can get together and still be on the same page.
Right.
That's really difficult. So good on you. Yeah.
And we all had the same idea that we wanted to build this empire that was state-of-the-art beyond anybody, not just in Bay County, but in the country. So we would invest where other people wouldn't or couldn't. We would invest $250,000 a year in new equipment every year, and that was our goal. Whether we needed it or not, we were going to spend $200,000 and $250,000 a year, reinvest in equipment that we could do things that other people couldn't do. And so we were the first ones to have the lasers for cataract surgery. And cataract surgery, traditionally, you have a knife and you have sutures and you make your incisions, and you go in and break up the cataract with a sound machine, and then you try to suck it out with vacuum and replace it. But your incisions are a man's incisions, where you think you are. You think you're the same every time, but you're really not, no matter how good you are.
Right.
And a cataract incision has to be a bevel, where there's a cut and then a slice and then a cut. So it locks in place so it doesn't open up and ooze out. And that allowed us to not use sutures after cataract surgery, and we got rid of a lot of astigmatism. But we did it by investing in technology that allowed a laser to make our incisions for us. So now the laser computer program lies itself over it. It'll come in and it'll make the incision on your cornea, and then you'll put in your elastase, and then it comes in and makes an incision on top of the capsule of the cataract, 5 millimeters every single time, perfectly, totally unreproducible by hand. And then you have a tight wound, a tight machine you can go in and make your incisions with. And then the laser breaks, instead of the phaco machine that injures the cornea through sound, breaks it up through light, leaves it into fragments.
Very precisely that you're focusing right on. Yeah.
Without damage to the posterior capsule that allows the lens to fall through. And then you just gently vacuum that out, and then you have a perfect capsule left, supported by the zonules, not ruptured, not traumatized, that you can now fold the lens up, put it in there, gently unfold the lens into perfect position, rotate the axis, and you come out and you're done. And there's no sutures, there's no astigmatism. They see 20/20 the next day. There's very little inflammation, there's no infection. And 80-90% of it now is automated, so every patient that comes in there has the exact incision, the exact closure, the exact capsulotomy. And so we were so early at it, we actually were teaching people how to do it, where even people with this equipment had a ratio of 20/20 vision of like 74%. We were like in the 88-90 percentile of 20/20 vision the next day, beyond the rest of the country. And it was incredible. And that kind of technology, we invested in everything. We invested it in cosmetics and lasers. I had the state-of-the-art lasers at my disposal that I was used. I could tune the wavelength of it so that I could just get the right amount of thermal burns without causing scar tissue.
Again, very precisely at a certain point that you're really focused.
I could turn the down to like 577 nanometers and get just the right color. Each one of us was a specialist in our own way. We had someone doing pediatrics, I did retina, Garland did plastics, Fisher did LASIX and all that. And together we formed this really synonymous thing where no one did what each other did, but everyone really appreciated what the other one was doing for them. If I had somebody with macular degeneration, which was kind of where I really loved to work, and I had a central scotoma, I could always ask Dr. Edgar, can you make a magnifying system for me, or create a system that I can shift the image off axis of the scotoma? and allow them to do some reading and independent pay their bills. And he would work really hard, and he'd find optical devices that would work in these situations that kept people independent years beyond where anyone else would have spent any time doing so. So there was synergy in everything that all of us would do. If there was a cataract, I knew my partner would send them back to me, perfectly centered lens of my choice that allowed me to have the best view, to take the best care of the retina through any pathology that would occur. And it was reproducible with everyone that I saw. No one came back different, mixed up. There wasn't bad outcomes. It was a group of people who had a consistent product that was some of the best in the country.
Yes.
And it was very
like
rewarding too, because now it's not even just about you trying to be your best. You're trying to be the best to keep up with the rest of the people trying to be the best. And it was received well in this community. We probably had like 80% of the footprint for years and years, and until the PE.
Now we're going to get to that, but the patients really that I talked to that experienced that, it resonated very well. I mean, it just landed very well, and I think it was customer service oriented, which is one of the things that I think we've lost sight of here in the medical field. But it also seems like you were taking some, I like to say that we're not competing with anybody else except for ourselves.
Right.
We're trying to make ourselves the best that we can. It sounds like you're reinvesting. You had leadership, you had vision, you had this kind of principled stance to how you were going to approach things. And man, did patients benefit from that. So that's great.
It was very rewarding, and still is in the right group. I was trying to counsel a young physician who's working over at the medical base now, the VA over there, and he's about to give up his final duties, and he's going to go out in private practice. And I was trying to espouse to him, I said, just consider, because, the physicians these days almost never think about the long-term investment of being a physician. They're like, well, I'm going to join a group, I'm going to get a salary, I'm going to work for a hospital, I'm going to work for whatever. And it's very short-sighted. And they're going, but I want to go home at 5 o'clock. And I'm going, well, even as a private physician, if that was your only goal, we can work that out eventually. You can still do that.
You can do that.
But the independence you have of the quality of the practice that you provide is dependent on who's making the decisions. And if you're working for somebody else, it's not you. And if you're working for a corporation, it's not even a physician. So it's people who really don't even know why you became a physician, why you trained, what your morals are, why it's a God-given gift to have the ability to even play in this game. And now instead of maybe 20 patients, which is the right amount for you, you've got to see 50.
Yes.
And then of those 50, you only get a couple minutes with each one, and then they're going to tell you what you can do to take care of them. You can't use that medicine. You can't do that. That's too expensive.
Yeah, you can't use that laser. Sure.
Yeah, so all the finesse that you have learned to become is now molded into something where you're compromising a little bit every day to try to make the patient something better. And it's just not who we are. It's not what physicians are born to be. It's not who we have dreamed of becoming since you've been a child, or, since you've realized that's what you wanted to be. So I'm a big advocate of, patient-centric, patient-first, understand the privilege of what you're doing for those people and make that the priority. It's not a number. It's not a metric. It's not an EPIDA number. If you don't take that person, know who they are, love them for who they are, accept that love back, and do your very best every day, then you're really not what a physician is designed to be. You're molding into something else.
And the rest is going to come.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is going to come. The lifestyle, but I mean, also the good feelings of it. It all comes with that kind of relationship that you establish with them.
I've never worked a day in my life for the dollar that followed me. Yeah, but correct. As you just mentioned, if you really love what you do in any field, yes, you're going to have enough resources to put food on the table and be happy and have a vacation each year and whatever it is. And physicians are, granted, they do seem to be at the upper end of the pay scales. And I hope they manage it well and invest it well. And I hope they reinvest it well.
Yes, yeah.
But that's not what being a doctor is about.
It's not.
I mean, I don't know any doctor who goes to work every day and says, oh my gosh, I just made $10. I mean, all the things we mentioned is why they go to work.
I've said before, look, if invest this time and go into engineering or business or something, you'll make a lot more money than you will go into being a doctor. It's not going to be the same feel I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm biased about a lot of the things, but I mean, this is the thing that I'm too dumb to do anything else. Like,
Certainly
this is going to be my
hour for hour, because when you're training, 3 days on, you don't get the one day off. Even when I started my practice, it was 12 hours on, 6 days a week.
Sure.
Even in this practice, I would show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, not go home until 6:30, 7 o'clock every night. Easily. And that's before the emergencies start getting added on to the end of the day that you have to deal with. You're on call all the time, your entire life. You never really have that feeling where you can just leave unless you've incorporated a instructor to share your call, which, finally in the latter practice we were able to do. But even that, you're still the physician on call. So if an optometry person takes the call, they still call you. So you're always kind of at the bay and whim of what happens.
Yeah.
Dollar for dollar, you're right. You could probably make more money as an engineer.
Sure. And I had to change my mentality about that that call aspect, because, you want to think that it is some albatross that you have to carry around with you. And the truth is that it incentivizes you to train the people that are kind of taking care of some frontline stuff. So by the time it comes to me, I know that it's probably something that is worth my while to take care of.
Yeah.
And, the folks that are really out there working are taking care of a lot of the run end of that. So, this is a place where I think mid-level practitioners has helped quite a bit, actually.
They have.
And not independently practicing, but again, under the auspices of the physician, I think has really certainly helped us. We've got some excellent mid-level practitioners that are really good at being able to triage a lot of stuff. They're pretty sharp when it comes to cardiovascular stuff. And that's really been helpful quite a bit.
I think OBGYN has kind of found that too.
Yes.
With respect to the on-call, the other thing about that is that's when the patient is most vulnerable, because there's something that is non-planned has gone wrong.
Right.
And when you come in, you have to put yourself completely out of it, and you have to put on the face that I'm here to help you. What can I do to help? And you have to let them know, because they're going to say, I'm so sorry I brought you on a Saturday. I'm so sorry. That's who we are. That's what we do. And I really want to be there for you, because you're not doing them any good if you guilt them coming in on the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look,
it's nothing.
They don't want to feel badly.
No, they already
they don't want to feel badly.
Yeah.
Well, so can you talk a little bit about how your practice evolved a little bit?
As far as the growth of the practice?
Yeah, the growth of the practice, and then how it changed in terms of the ownership of the practice over time.
Yeah, this is kind of a subject that a lot of us more senior physicians have kind of grown into. Medicine now is becoming more consolidated. And, a lot of our friends will tell you now I'm part of a larger group. And there are some benefits to it. We ended up becoming a group of 1,200 ophthalmologists, and
it's an economic reality, it seems.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And you can do better at buying and purchasing equipment and things that way. But under the wrong circumstances, in our circumstance, it was a private equity buyout. Probably not a bad play if you're about ready to retire, but what it does is it takes the old physician mentality where you just love on your patients and care for your patients and control their outcomes in a positive way. And then you have to go to meetings where they'll come back and they'll say, well, we bought this practice under the auspice that it would grow at this rate. And we said, well, we can't promise that. We're all working, pretty heavily in our time and hours. And they say, well, this is about EBITDA for us. EBITDA to them means every quarter is more, because in the PE world, what they want to do is they want to get to a certain growth level and then potentially resell it at a higher dividend.
Multiple. Yes.
But none of these people are physicians. And they actually remove the physician from the equation. It no longer becomes, you're here to take care of other souls on this planet. You're here to fulfill their needs in EBITDA. And so I would try very hard to go to them and say, first of all, it doesn't matter what the money is. It'll be fine. Just let us take care of the people. And this is how. And they'll say, well, I've got to save a little bit. So you're 5 techs now, or 4 techs, or 3 techs, until you finally say, I can't perform at this level. Then I'll give you a 3.5. And it's always a negotiating game.
Right.
And it's always on the things that are the least impactful to them on a financial basis, but they don't see it. They don't say, well, if I can make people happier with my 4 people who know what they're doing, there won't be people as mad. They won't be talking about it. You'll do more work. You can even see 5 more people a day.
Yes.
I mean, it just works out. But a lot of the business people don't see it in that light. And so I became a little disenfranchised with it. I know it's the reality of where we're going. Not all practices are run that way, because some hospitals really do want the reputation of doing a good job, taking care of their patient. Their lives depend on it. And they may be more patient-centric.
Yeah.
But the consolidation of medicine in general, and it doesn't matter if it's ENT or ophthalmology or cardiology, the OBGYN, they're all doing it. And they're starting to control which drugs they prefer you to use and how many patients they want you to see. And for me, it's not why I became a doctor. So it's a harder pill to swallow to follow that model. But we do have to grow with the times. So there will be a medium, and you know, people will find their way.
There's
and patients will get good care.
Sure.
It's just going to be, we're just going to have to change the way that we look at medicine.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot to say about this, and this is why I really want you why I wanted to broach the subject with you, just because of your experience with it. It's not all good. It's not all bad.
No,
Look,
it's not.
there's a recent philosophical podcast that I was listening to that talked about, you know, we all have heard of FU money. we want FU money, but there's really two other aspects to that, which is FU family and FU freedom. And those are separate things that are not in the FU money category. And they're all important in their own way. And you can kind of pick and choose how you want to do that. Certainly it can be lucrative in order to get this financial buyout. And you can't be, nobody can dog you for saying, I want to take care of my family. Like that is a position that is indefensible. You have to be able to take care of your family. That's part of the thing of why we're doing any of this in the first place. But it does come with a mixed bag. You are going to have a different boss, and we all have bosses. We all have bosses, whether that be patients or other outcomes. And the other thing that I like about this is because it elucidates a bigger problem with just how, when you have governmental health care, which is effectively what we have, we have governmental health care, is that you get the real power when you consolidate into a larger group. Then your contracts get better, you get better purchasing power, all of those kind of things. So it kind of is forcing you, it's a forcing function to get you into this whole atmosphere where at the end of the day, patients end up losing out in several ways. It's not all ways, but it's in several ways. And so this is part of what happens, is the natural outcome of when you have this kind of government overtake of healthcare. And I don't think it's for the better for patients. So if ultimately at the end of the day, you want to say, we want to give the best healthcare outcomes for patients, this is not the way to do that. You cannot force us into these kind of things, but you also have to make it an economic reality to where we're not scraping by in order to make a living. Now, as you had alluded to, most physicians, we are not going to worry about paychecks at restaurants, but it is becoming more and more squeezed down. And that's a harsh reality in some ways to tell. It's a hard way to incentivize younger physicians that we really appreciate and would do very well in medicine to come into it as well.
You're making them very homogeneous. You're taking all the physicians.
That's right.
You're telling them this is your box, and now you're going to have 15 patients today. And some of this is very positive because a lot of the hospital practices won't let them have more than this block of people.
That is true.
And I hope that means they're getting extremely good care because you got to stay busy.
Yes.
And maybe that's an outcome that's okay.
Yes. So it's good and bad. It's mixed bag.
It's good and bad. Yeah.
Anyway, I appreciate you sharing that experience because it's personal, but I think there's a lot of physicians that think that that's the exit point there. And maybe it is, but just think about both sides of that. That it's not exactly, don't look entirely through the rose-colored glasses there. There's some different issues to really think about there in the long haul.
Yeah, there is. A lot of practices, I think if we could really encourage them too, they can cultivate physician employment to come in, so there's young people that stage in as the doctors go out.
That's it.
And practices can really work into perpetuity. And they can be a Mayo Clinic that have been there for 80 years.
That's right.
Just by cycling through talented people. And so there is a role for that. I would like to encourage a lot of young people to be mindful of the possible outcome and the benefits of having a practice of your own for 20 years, because you're building an equity that someone else may want to assimilate.
Right.
And as opposed to just being that employee forever. And
I think there was a time where that used to be the model, that say 70s, 80s, 90s, that was the model of how it would come through. And then something changed along the way. And I think there may be a pushback towards getting closer to that model again. The other thing is like paying off any student debt.
Oh, Lord, yes.
There's There's no better feeling than doing that. It's hard to explain to you how great it is to build something that works. You've built a lot of things with your hands.
I do.
Refiguring boats, having them work, that is a great feeling. Building a business and building a practice is a really great feeling to say like, man, I accomplished that. And I had to flex a lot of muscles that I didn't have.
You know, a lot of kids too, I'd like to stress to them just, physical responsibility. When I was out of school, I didn't have any really significant financial help, so I had to borrow it. And when I was out of my final program, I was $250,000 in debt back in the day when that was probably $500,000.
Yeah.
And
the earth was hotter then, is what my dad would say.
Hotter,
That's not true. So.
I put my nose down. I only had what I needed for 5 years. I put all my extra money that I made into my loans, and in 5 years, I paid that off. And then I was fresh and I made a new start on it. But fiscal responsibility is an important aspect for people in any walk of life, of any age. And it's worth having that debt to get to a position that you can afford to pay it off someday. It
is. Yeah. And again, very good feeling to be able to pay that off. That's my wife and I still high five each other over that kind of thing. So let's change gears for a second. Tell me what is the biggest issue facing your specialty?
Well, it's not really an issue in our specialty. Our specialty has changed 100% in the last 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
I mentioned I do a lot of macular degeneration. In the beginning, when I was first treating people, we always had these lesions, but they would just evolve because we didn't have any real great treatment for it. We had thermal laser, and we went through a lot of gradations of how do you use it and where do you go, and we found out that if we incompletely treated lesions, that they would just grow like wildfire, and then they would grow and become exudative and large. And we realized back then our goal was that a flat retinal lesion is better than an exudative, bulging, scarring lesion.
I can make things worse.
As far as visual function. So we started out learning all the different types of ways of treating and minimal treating and that. And there was actually a day I remember when I was first practicing where the treatment for central macular lesion was just to completely photoablate it, leaving them immediately with a large scotoma. But statistically at that point, the physical outcome of a scotoma, which got immediately, was more functional over 10 years than was leaving it becoming an exudative scar. So we would try that. And I remember the first nurse that I ablated her fovea, and she was just so dysfunctional with it and so unhappy. And I realized this is just not the treatment that we need to do. We need something better. A few years later, we came up with something called photodynamic therapy, which was great. Because what we used to do, taking pictures through fluorescein imaging on 35 millimeter cameras, to try to make sure we could treat the whole lesion so it didn't grow bigger. Now we had a dye we would put into their hand or their arm, and it would go through these choroidal lesions where all the bleeding was. Then you stimulate it with an external light, a UV light, and then it would thermally activate in area that was abnormal, leaving the more normal tissue behind. So we were able to shrink these lesions a little bit better, but they still ended up with scotomas, and they still ended up needing multiple treatments, and it became a little bit troubling.
Almost like a chemotherapeutic. You're getting the cells that are more proliferative.
It required the nurses in the room and IVs and timing, and they had to stay out of the sun for 5 days, or they would thermally activate.
Sure.
So it wasn't an innocuous treatment, and it wasn't the best treatment. And over the last 10 years or so, we have come up. In fact, it was about 1995. A friend of mine who was working at Bascom Palmer started working with Avastin, which is, shrinks blood vessels and tumors, and they worked with gastric tumors, breast tumors. And he said, well, I wonder what I'd do if I could inject that into the eye. So he started working at Bascom Palmer and getting doses, and we found that the anti-angiogenic effect of the Avastin in the eye was very productive. So we take these large lesions and slowly shrink them down.
You gotta have a blood supply, and if they don't have
shrink
that,
them down. And through the use of Avastin, at first it only worked maybe 4 weeks at a time, so we started with that. And over the years, we've gone through many generations of anti-VEGF pharmaceuticals. Now we have the copycats and the lookalikes. And we've now gotten them so they last longer, where we used to treat them every 4 weeks and then 6 weeks. The goal now, our question to ourselves, is how can I extend this treatment so it maintains that lesion from growing for the longest period of time before I have to retreat it? And we've thought about devices to inject it into an implant, and we've done a lot of retinal work and surgical work in it. But we're now to a point where, in any given day, I may inject 50 eyes with a compound, just one after another. But the benefit is the lesions don't get to those big lesions where they're legally blind, or they don't get exudative anymore. They get to be manageable lesions. They still have disabilities, but sometimes disabilities we can manage.
Of course.
But we're always working now on how can we extend and get these new compounds in combination of anti-VEGF and other compounds that decrease vascularization, so that we can manage these lesions appropriately. And it's getting really, really rewarding now, because we actually can turn things around. We can get an improvement in 28 or 30% of the people. We can keep people from going to legally blind for years to come, all because of the innovations that the drug companies have been coming up on our behalf.
Brilliant, yes.
So what used to be what took the greatest finesse, probably like everything back in the day when doctors were like doctors.
They were, yes.
Now we're actually having the finesse to do a better job with less invasive features, less training to get the physicians up to date on what to do. And this is all in the wet or the exudative macularization. There's now actually progress. There's a separate kind that most of the macular degenerations are the dry macular ones, or the atrophic or the geographic atrophies. Still very devastating, still can lead to long-term visual blindness. But we're even coming up with compounds now that stabilize the progression of just the atrophic variety of macular degeneration, allowing people to see for years longer than they would have, and in some cases never progressing to where the natural outcome would be.
Well, it's indistinguishable from magic. And I just, perhaps for some of our lay audience, scotomas are going to be blind spots that we have.
Dark spots in your vision that you can't see through. You always have to try to look around them. People with macular degeneration seldom go blind, meaning black.
Yes.
But they do have a lesion in the center that doesn't allow them to see faces. They can't drive. They can't read. So a lot of them will tell you, I'm blind. I mean, you can't convince them that they're not, because their function is impaired, but they still have peripheral vision that they can walk around and see a doorknob or
centralized scotoma. Yeah, I gotcha. And then VEGF is vascular endothelial growth factor. So this is one of the many hormones that our body secretes to grow blood vessels, angiogenesis. It's crucial to us being who we are.
They are.
But it's also utilized by many tumors and other different lesions that say, once you get to a certain size, you can't just diffuse the oxygen in and CO2 out. You have to get blood supply to them. So these lesions or the body will react by secreting VEGF. If you can block VEGF from happening, then you have the opposite effect on these blood vessels. And we've seen some success in tumors limiting their growth size. And obviously, there's another potential right here, which is great to hear.
No, that's exactly right. It really has come a long way. We've made improvements, surgical improvements in vitrectomies. We've made surgical improvements in retinal detachment. We've made improvements now in using different types of gases to expand within the eye to bring retinal detachments back without surgery. We've had advancements in cataract surgery that have just been almost indescribable because it's been voluminous of what we do. We now do, instead of corneal transplants where we take all 5 layers of the cornea, we now can take only the endothelial, the lower 5th layer, and replace it. So people with corneal dystrophies now can be healed by a transplant of a single layer of the endothelium.
Without touching the proximal 4 layers and going down more distally?
Yep, we go in and do it from the inside. We'll peel it on the inside, take it out, we'll get a new one, we'll make it, we'll roll it open, and then re-stick it from the inside.
How thick is this layer of endothelium? Is one cell
One cell.
Is one cell thick that you're pulling off? You're talking microns, and you're able to peel that off. I mean, that amount of precision is unbelievable. It's science fiction. That is very difficult to believe.
Our imaging equipment now that we typically use within retina is called an OCT, and it's through light diffraction.
Yeah, optical coherence tomography.
Exactly. Exactly. We actually can use that, and it images one cell thickness at a time. On the retina, you can actually see which ganglion cell is involved. You can see where the blood vessel is coming from, the size of it, the choroidal flow. You can see if there's anastomosis of retinal and choroidal layers. And it allows you to really treat specifically with the right treatment, because even though we have anti-VEGF now, doesn't mean there might be a better application for thermal laser or other things you may now put together where you may not have ever thought to put them together before. And a lot of it's trial, and we've come a long way too in clinical trials, because it used to be you just had enough experience, you thought about it, used your best common sense and treated it and felt you were right. And now, since the 80s, 90s, we now have these long clinical trials that instead of one man looking at it, you have 100,000
That's right.
patients.
That's right.
And things that you may have thought was doing good, maybe it doesn't do as much good as you think when you look at it 100,000 people large.
This is how I think the omnipresent march of scientific thought really works. It starts with that virtuoso, that person who just has really tremendous insight into how things work and says and makes a postulate and tries these things, and oftentimes it progresses the field. And then we turned into a more deductive reasoning scientific, well, actually a more scientific progress, which is we're going to iterate. We're going to try and we're going to see what the results are, and then we're going to go from there. And I think the next step, because it dovetails with my next question here for you, which is how does AI fit into all of this?
Well, in our world a lot. I mean, we now make devices that you can take home that will image your retina and look for small changes in macular degeneration before they occur, using a lot of these techniques.
Wow.
It's going to change the world as we know it. And I'm not afraid of it as, the old sci-fi movies where they're going to take over and kill us.
Yes.
I really think what we will do with this AI is, because it computes on so many different layers at the same time.
Yes.
You like derivatives. It's a good place to put a derivative.
Indeed.
The answers are going to be readily available, teachable, and not even just for physicians, but just for common folk, because they'll be able to come in and ask about a small lesion in your pituitary, and is that dangerous? And they're going to be producing...
Hey, my watch told me that I've got this scotoma that is,
Excuse me.
Yeah. So I mean, and I think that iterative process that I was alluding to earlier is that, you were saying we've got hundreds of thousands of physician scientists that are looking at these, or patient hours that we have that. Now we can cross the Rubicon to trillions, because you can iterate that via AI that can look at this data on a much larger scale. And so we can really detect patterns that we wouldn't be able to see. We just didn't have enough time periods for
a lot of correlations. Sometimes it takes years to get the understanding in what you're doing to actually see trends that translates into an early diagnosis.
That's a signal, not noise. Yeah.
Yeah. You never know, if inflammatory is more than a CRP. You may look at platelets, you may look at all the things that go into it. And you don't often think about them, but all of pathology is a story. It isn't just a disease. For example, if you would have in my world like a retinal vein occlusion, or even say a disc edema. Well, it's not just disc edema. Now you have to look at temporal iritis. You have to look at your arterial tree, your capillary tree. Capillary would be diabetes mostly. Arterial tree would hypertension, diabetes.
Yes.
It all logically makes sense. You can break it down into it.
Yes.
Excuse me. An AI might actually be helpful in that.
Yeah. This is patient comes to me with edema. What can you do about that? Well, I can treat the edema, sure. Let's find out why you have this in the first place, because there's a lot of different things that can lead us to that pathway. But if we find that out, then we can take care of that, no problem. As opposed to just treating this thing, I can prevent it from ever coming out.
And that's part of being a holistic physician, because someone may come in with hypertension, but if you don't see how much salt they're taking, you don't look at their family history, and you don't look at all the things that lead into hypertension, other than just hereditary vascular sclerosis, you could fix these people. You just got to change the way they're living their lives.
Yes, and oftentimes one of the things, because I see a lot of hypertensive patients, one of the things that I will ask is, how often are you checking?
Yeah.
And it will clearly be multiple times a day. And that's not helping you ever, so don't do that. But anyway, so it's this insight that I think that we still have. Now, I think probably the best pathway is going to be a combination of AI and humans that kind of come together to kind of consider these.
It's the old computer saying garbage in, garbage out. The AI is never going to replace the judgment of a human. It may give you options to look at, or it may give you perspectives to consider. But, final decisions, I don't think we're anywhere near having complete appendectomies done by an AI computer.
I would tend to agree. I don't think that we're there yet. And I listen to some techno-utopians that think that we're just across, all radiologists are going to be unemployed, all kinds of things. And, in some sense, if that happens, if I'm unemployed because AI cardiologists are taking over and helping everything, it's going to be a boon to humanity. That'll be great. Can I take that?
I just want to shut it off.
I'll talk to him. Anyway, that would be so great for humanity for us to have that I willingly give up my career if that is the case, because we'd be living much better and much healthier. So
not going to happen.
Maybe,
as much as
we'll see. I can't predict everything. Okay, so. All right, Jeff, tell me what you do for fun.
Well, I hate to admit it, but I learned from a millennial once a lesson in life.
Okay.
And I don't say that because I love millennials. They're actually turning out to be some of our more productive people in society.
I think the kids are going to be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she once said, in life, you should think about being well-rounded. So they had this 25, 25, 25 rule where I thought in retirement, what I would do is use 25% sailing my boat, traveling, exploring, 25% traveling in the country, RV, things like that. 25% abroad, see the rest of the world, and 25% with family who you love, and try to mix them together. Now, when I gave that plan to God, he laughed at me.
Yeah, that was cute.
Yeah, it was cute. He thought it was definitely cute. And it doesn't always work that way, but it keeps you mindful that there's a lot to do in life that is worthy of being a part of, family, friends, traveling. In this last year, we've been so blessed. We actually started by hopping in my RV. And we went all over the West. Every state park we'd spend a night or two or three in.
Brilliant.
We were in Sturgis. We went to Rapid City.
Yeah.
We went over down around Nevada. We just went all the way to Chicago, all the way out on 80, all the way down to whatever's down here, 90 or whatever, came all the way home. And it took almost 3 months. But we just, had the time of our lives with some family and friends who were traveling with us. Right. And we learned what rodeos were. I can now look at you and say, that's not my first rodeo.
Yes. Jeremy Sinceri will agree. That's
true.
Yeah.
I didn't get the belt buckle. But I did love the culture, the Wyoming culture, the Western culture. Very unique group of people, very bold, living in their life.
They are
unapologetic.
Yes.
It's a great group. Then we came back, and then I was able to try to do the international side. So we decided to tour the Mediterranean and started way up in the top of France and Bordeaux.
Yes.
Came all the way around France, all the way around Spain, stopping everywhere as we came around, all the way down through Italy and inside of Italy, inside of France, sat in cafes in Paris for a few weeks at a time. Ended up going down around back into Greece, Santorini, Greece.
Oh, yes.
And we went as far as we could go where the war almost wasn't getting close enough that I didn't want to be an American that close.
That's right.
But, the thrill is it's so fun to watch, even silly things like the phenotypic changes in people. We were able to go to Seville when they had the women in the dresses dancing and Ola. We were able to go to the F1 race in Monaco and saw the...
This is a sports dream of mine to go to the F1 in Monaco.
Incredible.
It just seems like such a cool place to be. I would love that.
Went to all the Greek islands. We hiked all the mountains.
Now, there's over 1,000, so I'm going to call you out on a couple things here, okay?
But big ones.
Yeah, the big ones. So, Mykonos, wonderful party place. Santorini is where Lindsay and I spent our 10-year anniversary.
I got married there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, the reason that we went there is because one of my closest friends got married in Santorini. We were on a Mediterranean cruise, and they got married in Santorini, and we were like, what is this place? I mean, it's hard to describe. You looking down into the caldera of a volcano from beautiful pools in this pristine place. Oh, absolutely loved it. So
we went to Nice for the film festival.
Oh, look at you.
Angelina Jolie had just gone by.
My friend, Angelina?
Yeah, your friend.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. My buddy.
Yeah. Funny how she dated that guy that was so rugged. Now he has that great Landman series. So.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Billy Bob Thornton. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been able to travel internationally, and the Mediterranean is just beautiful. I mean, we could...
It was. And it's fun watching the phenotypic changes. I was starting to say, if you look at the color of the eyes of the people that are over in not Italy and Spain, they have the fiery brown eyes, and they kind of get amber as you go a little bit further east, and by the time you make your way all the way through France and Italy, you get down into Greece, they have the olive skin and the green eyes, and it's just a really neat study that people don't go far away from home, and that the populations, you can see the trend of genetically how they've changed just in that short period of space. And it's fun to watch.
I had always thought about this from the medical perspective about, how our forefathers in medicine were able to diagnose some obscure syndromes and how they were able to do it. That I was always really impressed by that. But I thought about, if you were a relatively young internal medicine physician in San Francisco in the early 80s and you saw a lot of homosexual men coming with really obscure pneumonias, you would pick that up. You would start to say, like, there's something weird here that's going on, and you would pick up that trend. And so I tend to see it as we're really good at pattern recognition. And so you're kind of recreating in that Mediterranean voyage a Darwinian sojourn where you're seeing, like, you could tell where his brain would be firing to say, like, there's something here. This is there's some subtle changes, but it's really nice to see that. So,
and then how we could go so astray and miss the ball so badly with COVID.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so we've gone to big swings in identifying that. But yeah, in 2003, once we cracked the DNA code, once it became the public and the private found it, that's when medicine really changed. Because now where we used to have 1 or 2 medicines a year developed, now we may have 20 or 30 because now we know the genetic interactions to make those pharmaceuticals. And really, that's when our lives started really changing after that.
Well, and I think we've taken the leap up now with, that was the Human Genome Project. Now we've got the Human Proteome Project, where we have the protein folding manifestation of AlphaFold that has come out and has figured out the 90 quintillion possible different permutations of protein folding. So we can make predictions of these. We can make much more bespoke drugs that come in. And so I think that this is going to come to some point where we're going to get to the epigenetic level where we're going to be creating medications, or we're going to get the human pharmacome level where we can use specific genomic enhancers that are going to be able to create maybe even brand new proteins that we don't even know about that are going to be able to make our lives better.
Once you control
reverse macular degeneration or something like that.
Once you get the ribosome tree solved, you've solved the world.
Yeah.
One day we'll be just like the old Star Trek series where they had tricorders and they would shoot you in the neck and cure you of cancer.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is it. No, and this is, I think we might be in a way with AI speedrunning that.
I think so.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. It may not take 400 years or whatever. So
I think we're really in an accelerated place right now.
Yeah.
And we're competing heavily for it as a country. I mean, we're making these changes, like we're allowing them to have their own power plants. All the things that they really need to thrive, we're now opening the doors for them. I hope future administrations are on track with this. I hope that they continue to facilitate the growth of this industry, because it is novel to us, but it really will accelerate the growth of us as a population.
I agree with that. I think there's a ton of potential with AI that is very, very good. I still think we need the stalwart things in our lives, like you have kind of alluded to, which is family, experience.
We're still human.
We are still human, and that is something that's going to be difficult for us to escape.
I'd actually say that's our best part.
Yeah.
The fact that we come down to the core and we have all the same emotions and feelings that people had 2,000 years ago.
We're the same creatures.
We're the same creature.
30,000 years ago. We're almost the exact same creatures.
We like to study history a lot, and we started studying, the biblical histories and the pre-biblical histories. And this is where the Mediterranean trip was so helpful. I thought that 70 AD, when Jerusalem was down, we went into the Middle Ages and it was all dark and no one did anything. Europe was alive.
Absolutely.
I mean, they were going into kingdoms and wars and all the stuff that would happen. But, they look at life in the scope of 3,000 years. We look at life in the scope of 250 years. And when you go down and you talk to these people, they have their condos downtown and just one bedroom. It's all marble. It's all old. Not you have the bathrooms are like, is it going to work or not? But they're like $3, $4, $5 million 1 or 2 bedroom places. Sure. And they make $1,200 a month typically as a worker. And you say, well, how do you do this? Well, they've passed these down from generations. They were bought 6 generations ago and the family is still living there, and sometimes multiple levels of the family. So it's a very different way of life, but they're thriving in Europe. And
they also, their lunches are slower. They wouldn't do a 30-minute lunch. No, it's not anything. It's sit, still, converse, enjoy, relax, be.
When I was in Paris, the idea of waiters was so foreign to me there, because I thought they were mad at me, but they'd give me a glass of wine and they'd walk away for 2 hours.
Yeah, they wouldn't come back.
They wouldn't come back.
Yes.
And if you actually called them and said, I really got to go, they say, are you mad at me? Do you not like my food? And they were offended. And I was like, no, I just got to go.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's, just the thought of, it's a great way. You learn so much more about being an American when you travel abroad. Mm-hmm. That's what you really learn about our language and other idiosyncrasies.
The other thing about Italy was kind of strange is you sit down and you say, well, I just want a little something to carry me through. We found this over in Monaco. And the waiter was, well, that'll never do. And so you can't order a piece of pizza. Everybody's got to have a whole pizza.
A whole pizza?
And
yes.
everyone's got to have a whole meal and other things with it that go with it. I mean, you laugh because they say, eat, but they really do overserve that food, but they're not heavy.
But the food is like pizza in Italy is very light fare. I mean, it's actually, you eat it and you can go walking afterwards and then go have gelato. And I mean, you can see where they'll look great and it feels great. Yeah. It's also something about, Lindsay and I had this experience of eating pizza in an Italian restaurant in Rome and then saying, oh, Caesar got stabbed right over there. That's right. It's just an amazing experience. It's great things to kind of live through that.
Another really amazing thing, because we have a fascination in going into all these old churches because they're just beautiful. God, so and architecturally,
gigantic and
80-foot ceilings supported by external structures.
In no-name towns. Too.
Nothing.
Just out of nowhere, and they build these gigantic Gothic masterpieces. Yeah.
Originally went in and we're looking at the frescoes of the Vatican, and we thought, well, they own all of Europe. But they don't. Every small town in every country has frescoes that are every bit as impressive as the ones that were.
Unbelievable, breathtaking, exactly. Transcendent pieces of art that you get to find. And I mean, but the Vatican and St. Peter's is, I mean, to have every single piece of glass there that creates their entire masterpiece is just...
I was in Murano. We were going up to look where they make the glass.
Yes.
We took the boat and came across, and of course we found one of those churches we wanted to see just in the middle of nowhere. Oh, yeah. No one's ever in them. And we came in and they had someone that was going to walk around with us because it was going through some renovation. And we looked, and every church up there is a graveyard. There's like 1,000 people buried in the floor with marble over top of them. Yes. But we came up in the front, where they had all this stuff, and I looked over, and there's this like plastic case. And I walk over, and I said, oh, it was actually, like a shriveled body in a cardinal suit. And I'm like, what is that? And they go, oh, yeah, that was the cardinal. He was here like 900 years ago. He's been here ever since. They just put him in this box and left him in open view. And, you're like looking at it, you look at the shrunken body, dehydrated. I'm like, we wouldn't do that here.
No.
But they're like that. And
it's an odd reverence for those that have come in the past, but it's also an assimilation of their ways into the present day. That, technology is kind of a facet, but it's not the main piece. It's sure we have cars and other things, but really the reality is the experience, is sunsets, is conversation.
The other misnomer, they always say the French will treat you badly if you don't speak French. No, they treated me amazing. They were wonderful people.
We had a wonderful experience.
Although my wife tells me she was going to bet money that I was going to be an Italian. She thought, those are your people. They make your cars. They make your food. That's going to be your people.
It's true, yes.
And turned out I was more Greek. And, the men there are amazing. They walk up these huge mountains every day. They're in this incredible shape. The women are just very sweet and kind. They have, you said, the olive skin and the green eyes. They're always happy and they're smiling. And the food is incredible.
Food is amazing, yes.
And even the older men, they're very stately. They have their white hair combed back. They wear their, nicest clothes. And, I've just left Greece going, this is my second home. I think I could spend some time here.
Yeah, I think I find more and more there's few places in Europe that I didn't really enjoy.
Right.
I mean, just amazing across the board.
Rode the 200-mile-an-hour train.
Did you?
Yes, came down from Bordeaux to the bottom, and literally I had my GPS looking at it. It's at 200 miles an hour. I'm like, what if a dog walks in the tracks? What if a cow walks in the tracks? It was over.
You won't see very often. Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't take long. So
apparently it doesn't happen.
No.
Yeah.
All right. You ready for some rapid fire questions here?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it. Who is the smartest person in history?
Smartest person in history. Goodness. Well, it's easy to think about the scientists, Einstein and all of that.
Yes.
And I don't know if he was the smartest, but he was unique enough that he came up with equations, and all the original mathematicians I really admire, because on a chalkboard, they came up with everything from relativity to the space and how everything rotates. So I think I'll give that to all of the mathematicians from the 1800 to the 1900.
I would agree with you 100%. Yeah. So that's certainly a hobby horse of mine, but I'm math nerd like that. Yeah. If we can live to be 1,000, should we do it?
I think yes. I mean, it might just be because I love life so much and I just can't quite get enough of it because it's so different every turn you make. But I think if we could be healthy in 1,000, the contributions we could make, the things we could see, the reverence that we could develop, I would vote for
the wisdom.
Yeah, I think when God cut us to 120 years, he cheated us, but I guess we did pick that apple.
I mean, the woman picked you. But you know what? Let's just leave that where we. All right.
Yeah.
Would you rather have it too cold or too hot at night?
Well, I don't do cold at all. And that.
Aren't you from Pennsylvania? This doesn't make any sense.
That's why I'm in
You're
Florida.
honorary Greek now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You know, how I got to Florida, I was living in a house where the driveway went into the garage, so you had this deep thing. And in Pennsylvania, they have, trucks with plows the size of this room. And I would dig it out after work, after 12 hours, and a plow would come and put 3 foot in. I'd dig it out, 3 foot in. I swear they did it just to get me. I thought they were
just
watching
waiting for you
me.
to finish, yeah.
Yeah, and on the third time he did that, I put my shovel down and I decided I'm moving to Florida.
Florida's the way, yeah.
It was the only way. And I'd been cruising here for 2.5 years on my boat. It was just no way I wasn't meant to be here. And so it just took me a while to figure it out, but I made the right decision.
Florida's all the better for it.
So too hot, if it's not hell, too hot.
What's one thing, if you could go back in time at your start of your medical training, that you would tell yourself?
Patience, mostly, because all good things come if you can be quiet enough and centric enough. I think I would have probably started studying, the Bible earlier a little bit, and learning history a little bit more. I would have fostered relationships with more people along the way. I probably would have kept the friendships that I've made, the good ones, over all the years. Now, I have friends who go back to high school I still keep in touch and hang out with, but not enough, because people are just so precious and they're so worthy of staying in contact with and growing with them and learning from them. So I would do that. That would be my thing I'd want to do.
Great answer. What is one current medical treatment or therapy that we are going to be embarrassed or shudder at that we used 15 years from now?
One medical treatment?
One medical treatment we're currently doing that 15 years from now we're going to say, I can't believe we did that.
Yeah, well, I'm going back to, I can't believe what we did with COVID. It was just so wrong. Yeah. I remember we were at a medical meeting when all the people would stand up in the medical meeting and say, look, we've all studied virology. This isn't the first time a coronavirus came around. It's novel, but it's not new. We can predict patterns. Right. We can make these decisions. And we were silenced. And so I think that's something I wish we'll never experience again. I would like to see the goneness of the wokeness of canceling and allow us as physicians to make real decisions with all of our voices independently and be listened to as a group.
Love it. What book are you currently reading?
Oh, I don't have one I'm currently reading. I flip back and forth on my phone, and I just read everything that's on my phone. Yeah. I read news reports. I read, things that come up with art and travel and exercise, and there's just too much to read.
There is.
I did just recently read the John Kennedy book. And he's just funny to me. He's a senator out of Louisiana.
I know him well. I've got a picture of him at an LSU game with him. So, I know.
And we just got through a book about civilization, the evolution of civilization and what makes it. And it's a unique perspective because it describes industrialization and who's got the best chances of surviving into the future. Like people like Germany and stuff, they're not going to make it because they're not supplying enough children to support the industry, and they have no industry. And some people like Japan are adapting by sending their industry over to America to make cars and other places.
Demographics is destiny.
Demographics, yeah. We as America are unique. We can look at our millennials and we can call them what you want, but they're going to be our salvation. They're going to be the ones that are making these babies that can reproduce for us so that we can grow as a country. And also unique to us is we have enough land that we can expand to.
We've got resources. We've got lakes. We've got uranium. We've got all this.
None of it anywhere in the world. Right. So we're uniquely situated to becoming quite successful as a country in the world if we just keep our nose straight, work hard. We need immigration, but it needs to be the immigration of people that will help us, not just people randomly because they want to come. And so there's a lot with that. I think that's going to be something for sure. All right, finally, what's your favorite song? My favorite song? Yeah. Oh, Lord. My wife plays harp, and it's one of the greatest thrills. I'll be walking up to the boat, and she's playing her harp, and she has a big, beautiful concert harp, and she's working now on Stairway to Heaven on the harp. And it is just such a thrill to be thrown back to, when it first came out and listen to her play that again. So I'm really thrilled with that. But all genres of music are wonderful. I love the timbre of the harp, and it is just so beautiful. So to hear Stairway to Heaven, I'm going to have to check that. So music is one of those genres where you can actually be thrown into an existence experience it, get a taste of it, but not actually have to be in it. Like rap music, for example. When they first came up with rap music, you listen to it and you say, okay, I get an idea what the ghetto is like, but I didn't have to move to Harlem to figure it out.
Yeah.
And all genres of music are like that. And all decades, I used to say, well, I just missed all the 80s or something like that. But you go back and there is amazing music in every generation.
Absolutely.
And it has never stopped. It can be Frank Sinatra, or it could be Nine Inch Nails, but they all have things to bring together that are interesting to experience.
Absolutely. And I do think that there are certain notes, certain musical notes that just resonate with us as humans that we hear, and it just creates a compelling, you hear Ode to Joy, and it's hard not to feel something about that. Certainly.
That's like the Hallelujah song that the guy came up with in the 50s. It's just melodic and has a different meaning for everybody.
Right. I almost don't know that you needed the lyrics for that. I think it was probably going to land on us in a very similar way.
Well, the lyrics is a very jilted love song.
It is.
I mean, when you actually listen to the words, it becomes a different song completely.
And so the feel of it, the essence of it really, I think, kind of extends. And there's a lot of that with music. So.
Are you playing an instrument currently?
Not really. Our girls are taking piano lessons. We got a piano at the house, and we have a bass guitar that I'll piddle with occasionally. But I just like musical stuff. So.
I bought a cello last year.
Did you? Oh man! And probably my favorite instrument ever, just in terms of, again, its timbre is beautiful.
Well, it mimics the human voice, on its better days. And so I'm still learning how to tune it and do the bow and everything. But one of the things I wanted to do in retirement, I'm still going to pursue, is I want to take the cello and actually make it sound well played.
Yes.
And I don't want to do just classical music. I want to actually do what my wife is doing on the harp. She's taking rock and roll music, playing it on a harp. And she actually has YouTube videos now. So I have to show you.
I'm going to have to check those out. Okay. Yeah, no, one of my favorite bands growing up was Smashing Pumpkins, and they would tour with the cellist.
Yes.
And it added such a dimension to their music that is really still lands on me to this day.
That's wonderful.
Well, Jeff Pyne, tell everybody where they can find you if you want to be found. Do you want to be found?
Well, I'd love to be found. I want to keep in touch with all the people in the medical society. We have tremendous friends here, tremendous physicians here. Tremendous leaders here that, I think we can still work towards making this community something better than we even imagined it a year or 2 or 5 years ago. Call me. I still have a cell phone for now.
I want to thank you personally for being a mentor and how to handle the Emerald Coast Medical Association, because I think you just paved a really brilliant line, a bullion, if you will. I also want to thank you for all the things that you've done for our patients here in this community and beyond, because it's a huge number of people that you've just made their lives better in a really altruistic way. Certainly you got some benefit from it, but I think you were given a lot more than you took away from it.
The honor has been mine.
And finally, I want to thank all of you for joining us here and helping us make medicine better together. Thanks.